Dear listeners, welcome to our legal conversation under the roof of Justice House. We are two jurists who have practiced law for about a quarter century. In this podcast series, we will talk about law and share our thoughts with you. Generally, we do our podcast in Turkish. In addition, we would like to also record some episodes in English, maybe German, as well for those people who are interested in Turkey. Our aim is to contribute to raising awareness in law and justice in Turkey.
That sounds pretty interesting. In Turkish, then English, maybe later German, but as much as we can. Everything about law, anything without law.
We call this digital platform Justice House. We all are familiar with the Justice Palace in Turkey, but we prefer Justice House rather than Palace. Even though Justice Palace admittedly sounds quite fancy.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Well, let's start with Ahmet Cevdet and Ahmet Refik. Who we are?
One of us choose to be called Ahmet Cevdet Pasha.
Wow, Pasha. You
Yeah,
are a Pasha, not I am.
yeah, and one of us, Ahmet Refik.
Yes, I am, Ahmet Refik.
I am here as Ahmet Cevdet. Who is Ahmet Cevdet? He was one of the greatest jurists in 19th century during the last Ottoman Empire era. He was not only a well-known jurist, but also a historian and a prominent Ottoman bureaucrat, made significant contributions in terms of westernization of Ottoman law and judiciary. When we talk about Ahmet Cevdet, it is almost impossible not to talk about mecelle. What is mecelle? It is something we all hear. Mecelle was the civil code, which was part of the Ottoman civil law in regard to family law, right to property, and inheritance. Ahmet Cevdet was the founder of the Mecelle Commission, chaired for many years, wrote almost 1,800 articles of Mecelle.
He is one of the person who trained in Madras, member of scientific community, later promoted the bureaucratic class. I think he used to be a minister of justice and wanted to be a highest religious authority, the so-called Sheikh al-Islam, which was rare in his time.
Yes, that is quite right. Ahmet Cevdet received traditional education in madrasa. However, he was a quite open-minded intellectual, followed scientific and social developments in the Western society. He carefully drafted the Mecelle using a fact-based method, similar to Islamic law. We see the similar method in Abu Suud fatwas. Abu Suud was the greatest jurist and Shaykhul Islam during 17th century. He solved several legal problem by using this method.
I think you are absolutely right, because the İlber Ortaylı in his book, he argues that Ahmet Cevdet is a legal genius. He was one of the greatest analytical thinkers and a great jurist in his time. We do not see such lawyers quite often nowadays, unfortunately.
Yes, I probably belong in that small group of lawyers. Thank you for your compliment.
You are welcome, my friend. In this occasion, I must confess that your honor, it is a privilege for me to share this platform and discuss with you. Let me introduce myself. I am a humble man. As you know, Ahmet Refik was born in the early 19th century when the Ottoman state was getting used, in other words, struggling with the constitutional monarchy. In a sense, we could argue that both Ahmet Refik and Ahmet Cevdet were a kind of product of social, cultural, and legal crisis. They both lived in a centuries where very problematic, I can say. It is the main similarities that struck me directly at first glance. Are they traditional or conservative? It's quite difficult to say which is true. They are more conservative in eyes of ultra-modernists, and they are more modernist in eyes of fundamentalists. Ahmet Refik was also a lawyer who lived in a constitutional crisis. He's a kind of judge, similar with Justice Marshall for American legal history. Judge Marshall is a well-known judge. We all lawyers know. He contributed the judicial power of the Supreme Court on the legislative branch. Ahmet Refik took similar approach as Justice Marshall did in the beginning of 19th century. I think in the mid-1950s, when the Democratic Party came to power, a judge, Ahmet Refik, decided the constitutionality of law. He argues that the law cannot be against the Constitution. He reasoned his judgment based on a provision in the 1924 Constitution that the law would not violate the Constitution. It was such a significant decision, highly discussed among lawyers. Kemal Gözler, for instance, criticized Ahmet Refik's decisions. He argues it's very dangerous for a judge to interpret the Constitution without a clear article, gives power to the judiciary to examine parliamentary bills. Kemal Gözler would be right in terms of legal positivism. There were no constitutional articles gives judges power to check constitutionality of law. However, Ahmet Refik is a very important figure in terms of understanding his time and try to find a proper solution in terms of legality. We all know the period was ended up with a military coup. So I feel so close to him and identify myself, prefer to be called myself Ahmet Refik in this podcast series. I think it is the story of Ahmet Cevdet and Ahmet Refik in this point.
Yes. Could I say that Marshall in America is a person inspired and established the constitutional jurisdiction of the Supreme Court on Congress. Yet, there is a small difference between Marshall and Ahmet Refik. Ahmet Refik did not succeed.
Yes, you are absolutely right. He preferred to be retired, and the members of the Supreme Court who overturned his judgment were later promoted. Anyway, that's a different topic.
Now, let's talk about why we are doing this podcast series. As we said before, we are two lawyers practicing law for about a quarter century.
Wow, it's been a quarter century.
Yes, we do regular talks about law in general. We thought, why not record our conversations and share our opinions and experience with people who are interested in Turkish law and judiciary. What we want to talk is all about law. Whoever wants to listen to it is more than welcome to our Justice House.
I want to give some information about our website. It is under the construction. If anyone has a question, please let us know. I would like to add, we do not claim that everything what we said is totally correct. For this reason, if anything we say is wrong or might wrong, please let us know so we can learn from our mistakes and correct it in the coming posts. Apart from that, if there is anything you want to add or ask, we will be happy to help you and assist you as much as we can.
You are absolutely right, dear Ahmet Refik. We are waiting for our audience at the House of Justice. Please join us. If you listen to us, we will be very happy. I hope we could make a small contribution to Justice House.
Why not Justice Palace instead of Justice House? I mean, it sounds pretty gorgeous, like thrones and kings.
You actually know this subject had been discussed as well. Justice Palace or courthouse. Linguists also discussed it.
There is a well-known story. I don't know if it's true. I think it was the first years of the Republic or the last period of the Ottoman Empire. A delegation from the Turkish Justice Palace